Automate 2023. You guys have somehow managed to miss the signs. We are in the Siemens booth, and we'll be in the Siemens booth all day, so come over here and check us out. Very excited to be here, very excited to kind of continue to have all of these great conversations continuing on the efficient engineering theme. Again, thank you to Siemens for sponsoring this. Today we've got a very special guest, Bernd Bergner, whose name I said so many times, I'm fairly confident I did not offend you. Bernd, we normally don't get to shake hands in person. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Bernd. Really appreciate your time. Before we dive into what Siemens is doing in the automation industry, I wanted to get a little bit more of your background. How did you get started in manufacturing automation, and then ultimately walk us through your career?
Okay, yeah, my career. I guess the half of my life I'm working in automation, not only for Siemens, but also for other companies, but mainly working in automation. So I started my career at Siemens in the education, and I started programming Simatic with the PG 670. So and the S5, that was my starting with Simatic and with the automation. And later on, I moved to other companies to work for automotive suppliers in the automation area, in the special machine builders department, to learn how a machine is working. Because in education we're just learning programming, but important is to learn how the machine is working to program the right things. So absolutely. So and afterwards, I thought, okay, let's go to an automation vendor. It also in the area of Nuremberg. I went to automation vendor. And there I was, I guess, 5 years there. And afterwards, I thought now it's a good time to come back to Siemens, to factory automation and working for Simatic stuff again. So. And,
if I can ask you to elaborate a little bit on the transitions, because I know a lot of engineers and maybe those who are in like middle management are looking also outside of their current role, and whether it is at an end user, at a systems integrator, at a machine builder, like what is your perspective on going maybe outside on the and getting that external perspective before going back to like an OEM? Like I know you've mentioned that it was a purposeful decision to learn on your part. What is there maybe even advice for those who are looking to make this career moves?
So, for the career, I guess it's important to understand how a machine is working. So, because if you just program your code, and always it is a machine behind. It's not just software, it's always a machine behind.
Absolutely.
And so that's all. This experience was very grateful for me to learn how a machine is working. So the advice could be learn automation at an OEM, for example. So I guess that's very, very important.
And then you said you came back to Siemens, to factory automation. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more what it is that you do today? What is your position, and what are you maybe covering within Siemens?
So since I came back to Siemens, I always working in the factory automation area with different roles. Beginning was I was a consultant in pre-sales support for Simatic, and starting with S7 400 stuff, and all the totally integrated feature what we had or have with the S7 300 and 400. So it was before we introduced tier portal, we have tier features. So and I'm starting with this, learn how the things in the machine work together. The PLC together with the HMI, with the drive, and so on. So, and for me, it was an important step to bring all this stuff together in a portal, in a common framework, in the tier portal. That was a very big step for me.
So I want to dig a little bit more into that, but before, so Bernd, we are here in the United States, and the vast majority of our listeners are from North America. And so many of them are using non-Siemens hardware, right? They're using other vendors. Can you maybe help set the landscape of what automation looks like in Germany and in Europe? for folks who are not familiar with how large of a role Siemens plays?
So, okay, the whole Siemens portfolio, do you mean this? What
So on the factory automation side, from everyone that I was talking to when I was over in Hanover, Siemens had the biggest booth, right?
Yeah.
Everyone was in Siemens talking about a variety of different Siemens things. Everyone is using Siemens controllers. There is the VPL, the virtual PLC, the virtual S7-1500, which was huge news, especially there because almost everyone is using Siemens. Was that your experience working within Siemens factory automation, and then as an integrator and with a variety of end users, was everyone using kind of all of the Siemens portfolio?
Yeah. So we have for every industry we have the right products.
Yes.
So controllers, HMIs, drives, and all the other stuff around. What you need, RFID scanner, whatever, everything what you need for your plant is within our portfolio. Therefore, we have the biggest booth because we have everything what you need for your machine or for your line.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will be honest, Bernd, every once in a while I come across a product that Siemens doesn't have, and I'm talking to John or I'm talking to Lewis, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we finally found a product that Siemens didn't make.
Yeah.
But it seems like Siemens has a solution for basically everything I have ever gone looking for. And the more conversations we have on the Siemens side, the more interesting, as I would say, like the depth and breadth of the portfolio is. And then I go and I look online, and it's like Siemens has solutions for seemingly everyone.
Yeah.
Bernd, I do have a question for you. I know you've mentioned that when you came back from Siemens, when you came back to Siemens, you was in a pre-sales engineering role. And I think that is maybe a slightly less understood position, especially I've been more on the systems integration side. And I know that a lot of the listeners are either working at an end user or an OEM. I wanted to expand a little bit more on that. And I guess my initial impressions of pre-sales, you do a lot of the architecture and you kind of work with the client to understand their needs and specify maybe at a higher level the architecture for the solution, and then you hand it off like an engineering department. So I want to understand a little bit better maybe what pre-sales engineering does.
Okay, so that was more on consultant to create concepts together with the customer. So the customer is planning a line plan. So and he doesn't know how exactly should they do this. For example, for network issues, which routers do you need, which management systems do you need, and so on. And in my role, we support the customer to find the right solution. So that was. But then the implementation and the engineering was done by the customer itself, not by us. So we just support him as a consultant.
And I know that Siemens has a lot of products to help in that space as well. I know that we will have more conversations with the simulation experts and maybe those who are laying that out for the manufacturers. But ultimately, I'm assuming you're very familiar with how those tools work, and you would I just want to understand the process a little bit better. So when you talk to the customer, you're trying to obviously map out maybe their current state of the factory. You're trying to understand some of the bottlenecks or the issues that they're facing with the business, and then you're trying to ultimately create a plan, right, for a couple of years, usually, in order to build out the architecture that they would need to support either like a growing business or the current needs. Like I'm curious to understand maybe that interaction and that process a little bit.
Okay, so often the customer has a plan to do this, but not exactly.
Okay.
So he needs some network stuff. He needs some Profinet stuff and so on, but not exactly. And then they have a draft of the architecture, and we go through with the customer through his architecture and said, okay, on that point we should make it differently, or use this device or this product. So we help him to find the right architecture. So we are not completely create the architecture for him, just support, and that they will not fall into some gaps or whatever.
If I may follow up very quickly before I let Dave continue, how I want to say, I'm curious how much of a R&D process that is versus you already know all the solutions and you can just come in and propose the exact details. I'm curious once again maybe what are the questions that the customers have during that process? Maybe what are some of the challenges that you've seen while implementing this? So I'm just very curious, about your conversations in those projects.
So we have a lot of products doing the same thing. So, and it was very hard to distinguish for the customer to put the right product for this purpose.
Okay.
So, and that was often the discussion. The customer said, "Okay, I guess I should use this device," and we said, "No, will not fit to your requirement. Please use the other one."
Okay.
And configure it in that way, and then this device will work as you expected. So
interesting. So there's a bit of a trial and kind of understanding a bit better. I'm assuming maybe changing the original requirements the customer had. So
yeah. Well, on the technical pre-sale side, they have to be knowledgeable about the difference between products, right? So they have to know the difference between an S7 1200 and a 1500 and all the different networking and other switches that they have, because not Vlad, right? Vlad would know exactly what he wants.
Okay.
If I were to come and say, "Hey, Bernd, I need, we'll just say a networking switch here, but there are 6 options and all of these options look really similar," that would be a technical pre-sales. You would help go kind of figure out which of these 6 options that you need?
Yeah.
Okay. So I did some of that work. I called it more like applications engineering. It's similar-ish, right?
It's similar. Yeah.
Yes.
Similar.
So I did some of that work, and the people who commit to being those technical resources for their career are absolutely amazing, because the depth of their knowledge, especially within that stack, I am worried that at some point we will lose a lot of that knowledge as those people go and retire, because we do not have, as I would say, kind of the next generation of people willing to commit to that technical vertical for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I can follow up with a question, going into the manufacturing in general, right? So we've had a couple of discussions. We certainly cannot release a lot of that information, but I think that when you talk to a lot of end users and you notice there's changes in the way we do manufacturing, we hear about digital transformation, we hear about Industry 4.0. We've had some, I think, chats of Industry 5.0 in this conference as well.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are you seeing? What kind of shifts are you seeing customers go through? And maybe what kind of challenges also they're, hungry to solve, right? That they don't necessarily have all the answers, but they come to Siemens or other vendors to outfit it.
Okay, so I'm personally hungry to the fact of IT/OT convergence.
Okay.
So because in many customer talks where the OT guys and the IT guys were in the room from the customer, I see a border in between.
Yep.
So, and that will not help the customer, and that will not help us. So, and that's about mindset. Bring mindset together. That the OT guys need IT, and the IT guys need the OT, and have to understand the OT world. And we, as a vendor of this stuff, we have to help the customer that they can bring the worlds of IT and OT together. So that's, for me, it's very, very important. I'm very hungry to do this because, so I'm an OT guy.
Yes.
Yep.
100%. So, and I often thought, okay, the IT stuff, it sounds good, it looks good, but I was not able to understand it in the past. But right now, if I'm feel older and older, and have more experience, more customer talk, I understand, okay, it's so important to bring stuff together.
Yes.
I give you an example. So, for example, you program your machine with ladder logic in the tier portal, for example, and now you would like to you have to program some standardized library blocks, and normally you should test it before you bring it into the machine.
Yep.
And that's, for me, a hint to a CI/CD pipeline to bring this library blocks in the CI/CD pipeline, and that's IT stuff. We have to bring our code into Git to run this. So and I guess that's my plan, or that's I'm hungry about this to solve this.
I like that a lot. I would agree that I understand the IT stuff to respect what they do, but my favorite part about the IT-OT convergence conversation, Bernd, is the fact that I can go ask really important questions to people who know the IT and technical and networking questions on their side, and then I don't have to attempt to go learn it myself.
Okay.
So for me, that is the benefit. For many of the implementations I have done, the best ones have the IT team and the OT team, and we are all aligned, right?
Yeah.
We understand that we have the OT side and that we have to go take this data, and we'll go kind of high level, but we have to take this data, we have to network the solution together. Some of it is gonna live on the edge, in servers at the facility, but we generally need the IT team to help us with a lot of that networking. And then some of it will go to the cloud, so we can leverage cloud solutions, and then hopefully we bring connectivity back to the plant floor so we can leverage a bunch of these new solutions, right? And so as I talk to people about IT-OT convergence, I talk about it as, for companies that will succeed into the future, IT-OT convergence is a foregone solution. And what I mean by that is that the companies who will continue to grow and will become smart manufacturing industry 4.0 leaders will, if they already have not, will figure out that IT-OT convergence. Otherwise, they will struggle to continue as manufacturing companies in the future.
Okay, but for me, that's just one fact of IT-OT convergence. That's bring the PLC into the IT world, to the cloud, whatever. But for me also, IT-OT convergence is in mindset of developer and using tools, using IT tools in the OT world. So that's also a little bit different to bring just the OT stuff into cloud or into IT world. So for me, there's two different things of IT-OT convergence.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question on the agile, on the CI/CD, on kind of those sort of concepts. Are you, as groups that you are talking to as Siemens, are you seeing lots of adoption of those concepts? Okay.
Yes, a lot of.
Good.
Yeah.
Most of the people that Vlad and I talk to kind of fall into the buckets of, as I would say, they are going down that path. That is where everyone knows the future lies, or they are very happy doing exactly what they've done for the last 40 years. They are going to continue to do it. And there is very little, as I would say, middle ground, right?
Yeah.
There's the camp of, this is the future. There's the camp of, this is how we've always done it. And there are very few people who are like putting their toes in the water, like trying it out to see if it's good.
Yeah.
So I think that this is interesting.
That's interesting, and we should not change everything. We should build each step on the previous.
Yes.
So I was asking, and maybe like we can rope in a bunch of like different groups into this as well. So we were talking OEMs, we were talking end users, we were talking systems integrators, and I know they are all part of this kind of like digital transformation journey. I'm wondering, like, if you have a perspective of what role each one like plays ultimately in solving, I want to say, the end users' challenges when it comes to data, when it comes to some of these applications that they might not always have full visibility on, but need to solve the business challenges.
Yeah, I guess for me, the key is that the OEM will support such kind of contextualized data. They have to, because the system integrator, so they can only use what is existing, what is existing in the data of the machine. So, and the end customer have to require it from the OEM that they should support. They make at the end the commissioning for the system integrator much easier if they support contextualized and standardized data. So, for example, OPCOA is just one example of this, to make standardized and contextualized data of a machine. So, and I was working also for a department at Siemens that was more in the process automation. And I started some product initiatives on the topic of module type package.
Okay.
MTP is a standard of machines, or not machine package units, kits, in the process automation to make the life easier for system integrators.
Yep.
So, and we have a lot of talks with end customer, they have to require it, and also a lot of talks with OEMs. And at the beginning of the talks, the OEM wasn't sure if this is the right way, because if the data are clear at the machine, it could be that they lose some know-how.
Okay.
So, but at least they understand the benefits to do this. Because the pressure from the end customer in that industry is very high to have this.
I would definitely do.
And so MTP is the concept of we can take a Siemens part or perhaps a number of other parts, and if we have something else on stock and it's all within the same MTP, we can go ahead and replace those without causing other major issues. Is that, am I understanding the concept of MTP correctly?
So the concept of multi-type package MTPs, so or in the past, in the process automation world, you have to decide to one vendor from the DCS system up to the controllers, up to the package unit. Everything should become from one vendor.
Yes.
So, and there's not so flexible for the end customer. They cannot decide, I put that machine from that vendor because they support not my DCS system, for example. So, and with MTP, you could make modular machines with different automation vendors within, and they have to support the MTP standard description. And you also can use a DCS system what you want. And the DCS system will orchestrate with the help of MTP all the package units underneath. And also the recipe handling, because in process automation you always have recipes, services. So, and that will also be organized or orchestrated by the DCS system. So, and that's based on this standard. It's not a standard from Siemens, it's an official standard. And every vendor could support the standard. So just Siemens is not the only one, they support MTP.
Yes.
So it's similar to PACML, is that kind of like
it's similar. That's similar. Yes. But just for other industries, pharmaceutical, but also for food and beverage.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. I wanted to shift gears just a little bit. So I know that one of the problems that we see with end users currently, at least in North America to my knowledge, is the lack of, I want to say, technical experts that can come in and implement some of these solutions. And I know that ultimately the vision is to simplify, what it takes to integrate, what it takes to automate, what it takes to ultimately deploy a lot of these applications. I'm curious if you have like a perspective as, I guess we as an industry, what can we do to maybe empower engineers or bring more, like talent maybe from traditional like software industries in order to help kind of like grow manufacturing? I think, again, based on the shifts that we've discussed, I think we do need more manpower from, computer science majors, software engineering majors, people who truly understand the IT side, but also maybe learn the OT aspects a little bit to help in this sort of transition.
Okay, so on the one hand is the technical skills, what the employees has. So, okay, high level programming, high level language programming, and so on. But for me, the important thing is that they understand how a machine is working, the automation stuff itself. Because the other one, with which software, with which programming language we will program the machine. So we, as a vendor, should support. And we are working on that. We are working on it with Semantic AX to support structured text, programming. So we can do this, but the employees has knowledge about machines, how the machine is working. So, and for me, that the other thing, you can learn everything. You can learn every language to program. But the other thing is how a machine is working. That for me is so important.
So let me ask you maybe a difficult question based on that. Do you see the transition for those who are working in, let's say, IIoT spaces and understand both be more better positioned coming from the manufacturing floor, someone who understands the machine and then learns, let's say, a programming language? Or do you see us bringing in, as I said, maybe computer science majors, software engineers, and then teaching them the machine aspect?
Okay, so for me, I'm starting at the machine. So
Yes.
and later on, I'm learning how to program a machine. So and for me, it was a good decision to do this. I always think about my history, how a machine is working. If I'm discussing about topics in my area, so what is the need of the customer? What is the need to implement or develop a machine?
Yeah.
So that's for me was a good way to
Fair
do
enough.
this. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Interesting. So I think that all of this has been a really exciting conversation so far. Bernd, we always like to ask if we can get some sneak peeks, right? So we know Siemens is going to, I guess we just came out of Hanover about a month ago. We are here at Automate. Siemens is doing a bunch of really interesting things.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can share, maybe kind of the direction that Siemens thinks that the industry is going? I know that we're talking a lot about process simulation. I know
Yeah.
we're talking a lot about EVs. I know the virtual PLC just came out. Are you guys as Siemens kind of on the strategy development side, do you think it's going to continue down that path?
Yeah. So in the past, past 1 year ago, we released Thematic X. It was the
Yes.
first step of IT/OT convergence at engineering. So now we released the VPLC, virtual PLC. That's more on runtime side. Also, a convergence of IT and OT. Bring the OT PLC into IT world, into edge. So, and now we have on both sides, on engineer and runtime side, an IT/OT convergence. But we don't lose the existing world. You could program the virtual PLC with tier photo as it is, but you can extend it with Thematic X. So that's what I mentioned before. We will do step by step, and each tier should fit into each other. So, and that's also the next step, to come more into IT stuff. So to be more open. So we have an open industrial edge ecosystem where the virtual PLC is living, is running. So it's open to use different apps very close to the virtual PLC and communicate together. It's very easy to do this because right now, if you have on hardware PLC, you need just another device, another Thematic IPC for edge connection. So and now everything is in one device. So you save some compute node. You bring everything in one thing together to be open. And I guess this openness is a way what we will follow, or what is my intention that we should follow. Be more open.
I will make a comment, Bernd, if I may, and I'm not sure if you've spoken to a gentleman by the name of Matt Paulison. He spoke to us a couple of episodes ago. He works for a distributor that has standardized on Siemens products, and he truly understands, the value of, I want to say, software best practices to be a better, PLC, HMI, SCADA developer. And so I think that we had a really good conversation with Matt, and he truly sort of embraced this efficient engineering aspects of making really good decisions based on some previous software practices now being brought into the automation space. And I think that if you're listening to us today, and if you want to have a very technical listen to a conversation with Matt, he was really good. He walked us through, how they approach automation. And like I said, bringing in some of those like EIC pipelines, how to really deploy, how to maybe leverage edge tools properly. It was a really, really good conversation a couple of weeks ago. But I certainly agree with you. I think that's where the industry is going. I think that just like with everything else, it's important, as you said, to recognize that some people may want to still program, in the traditional sense. And some of them understand what power there is in maybe the tools that we're releasing to them, and they'll be able to take advantage of that, obviously become more efficient, bring more value at the end of the day to the end customer and the business. So I definitely appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
Dave?
I do want to take a brief moment, and again, thanks Siemens for having us here at Automate. We are talking all about efficient engineering. We'll go ahead and drop links in the description below where we talk about what Siemens is doing on the efficient engineering standpoint. And if you're excited about what Bernd is talking about, and you guys have been excited about the last 4 episodes, you will certainly want to go ahead and check that out in the link in the description and in the show notes and all of those things. But no, Bernd, I think that this is super exciting. I've enjoyed this very much. I know that we've talked a lot about kind of future-looking things, future-looking opportunities. I guess from your perspective, what is the future of automation in manufacturing?
The future.
Yes.
So,
an easy question.
An easy question. And an easy answer is, for me, is autonomous factory. That's for me one thing. What is my dream? That we will have products in our portfolio of Siemens that support the autonomous factory.
Okay.
Because for me, that's the future. There's no people at a plant, just machines.
Well, I'm going to steal Vlad's tagline on manufacturing in a hub and say, Bernd, I have so many questions about that.
Right.
So I guess I have seen people talk about autonomous factories in the past. Have you guys seen autonomous factories be successful and be able to stay running without a lot of human interaction on the Siemens side?
So yes, but for me, that the first step is that the communication between machines must be perfect.
Okay.
So across vendors, across different devices.
Okay.
So we need for this a very open communication platform. So and that's because half of my life at Siemens I'm working for some communication stuff.
Okay.
OPC at least. So and I was thinking how make this communication between machine easier. And the result is then that's useful for autonomous factories.
So I want to follow up on that a little bit, Bernd. If I'm an engineer who is watching this, wasn't able to make it to Automate, I would like to learn a bit more about what Siemens is releasing, is going to release. Is there a resource that you can point our listeners and viewers to learn about some of the products that we've discussed that are showcased here at the booth? Where should they go to learn a bit more?
So at first, I guess the Siemens website, Siemens.com is the first address what I would like to give. And on the other hand, also LinkedIn. So all employers at Siemens, or many employers at Siemens, not all, and many are in LinkedIn and spread a lot of information about automation stuff. So that's a good address to get in touch with Siemens.
And what about maybe like an in-person event? So I know that Dave and I have discussed a little bit SBS. Is that a big event for Siemens? And then Hanover maybe next year? Like, where do you guys typically do some of the big showcases when it comes to hardware and software?
So for me, the SPS in Nuremberg, that's much interesting. Or more interesting, because there the use cases are more in detail. You can catch the products itself, so that's more interesting. For me as a technical, from a technical perspective, that's more interesting. Yeah.
And so SPS to me has been described as a very process automation and automation in general show.
Yeah, it's in general factory automation and process automation. All what we have in that area is at the booth.
Very good. I do have one more question on the communication side of the autonomous factory. And I think it might also be like a future asking question of, we have many different communication protocols right now. Do you think that we're going to standardize on, or we will need to standardize on one communication protocol in the future? Or how do you think we will get the communication perfect to the level it needs to be to run an autonomous factory? Do you have a prediction for that?
Yeah, my prediction is not look at just at one protocol. So that's not enough, because each protocol has benefits or advantage or disadvantage. So I guess it's important that we have defined standardized data models across different protocols. So I guess that's important.
Okay.
Because if a robot communicates with the machine, will be different that two machines will communicate to each other. So they have other quality of services and so on. So I guess we have defined, or the industry have defined, standardized data models.
Okay.
And that should be used with different protocols.
I love that. I'm going to take us off the rails here, Vlad. So, talking about that, I guess the standardized data model is very of interest to me, right?
Yeah.
So every time I go talk about a new implementation with a client, it becomes, hey, we need to create a standard. Like, the organization needs to have a standard, and then we need to stick to that standard, right? Like this is, as we would say, kind of our guidebook to everything we do, is we're going to build the standards, and then we have to stick to the standards. And so, Bernd, everyone comes to me and they're like, Dave, I love that idea. What is the standard? And Bernd, every time I look at him and I'm like, we've got some standards, like ISA has got, a couple, OPC-UA Foundation has a standard, but then many people don't really follow those. Many people that I talk to and work with don't follow those, and it's kind of just an amalgamation. So do you think that we will at some point in the future have one of these standards bodies that helps create the standard that the majority of us are going to follow? Do you think we'll have a new standards body come in to help create the data model so that we can standardize everything in the future? What do you think that looks like?
Oh, that's a good question. So,
well, I've thought much about this question.
Yeah. So, right now, mostly it's come from the industries itself.
Yep.
They built some. I lost the word. So some consortiums to discuss how the data model should look like, just for a specific industry or for specific machine, for like PACML. That's so. And the question is how we can bring all these stuff together. So that's a good question, and normally it should come more from the end customer and from the industries. They have to push it because they have the need of this.
Agreed.
If I can follow up maybe with a lighter question, Bernd, I would like to get some career advice, right? And I'm going to refine this a little bit. If someone is in their early career, an engineer maybe on the OT side, who understands control systems fairly well, knows how to program PLCs, HMIs, and maybe understands machinery to some extent, and is looking around, even at Automate, and is realizing there's a lot more technologies coming out to begin to bridge that gap. And they're trying to figure out, well, maybe how do I fit into that equation? Because I would say that you can make an entire career out of AI. You can make an entire career out of like data acquisition, right? Yeah. What would be maybe your recommendation of someone like that should be focusing on, right? Like specialize, let's say, in one of those topics and become like really a specialist versus maybe a generalist, right? Like I'm curious, like what your perspective is on what would be a good focus for someone's early career on the OT side to maybe learn to supplement their skills and sort of be ready for the, like 3 to 5 years position.
So for me, it's data. Data is important for the future, and if you have experience in the machine itself, in automation stuff, I guess for me it would be the next step. Look more into data. Look more into IT edge, and understand how could you use data to earn money.
Okay.
So I guess that's an advice for some. They are looking, they have experience in automation, and that could be a next step for these guys.
Are there like technologies that, people should be learning? Because even, networking is becoming very important, right? Like a lot of factories need to figure out the solutions. Again, I wanted to contextualizing that data is like really, any
5G is important, I guess. That's these IT technologies are very important. And
good. Awesome. No, this has been fantastic, Bernd. Thank you so much. Last question for you is who should reach out? Who would you like to talk to? Is it end users? Is it other technologists? Kind of your open forum to talk to our listeners and to allow them to help you with the things that you're trying to do.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so for me, always to talk with customers, it's important to understand their needs.
Yes.
So, and to improve our products, always to be, yeah.
Absolutely. And so, Bernd, I know you're on LinkedIn. We will make sure that you're LinkedIn. And then if you would like us to put your Siemens email up, we don't have to commit you to it live right here. If you'd like you to put your Siemens email up, we'll have the LinkedIn, we'll have the link to the Siemens information. And if people want to connect with you more personally, they can go ahead and send messages to us and we can go ahead and get those to you. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much for this, Bernd. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. This has been Manufacturing Hub, live from Automate 2023 in the Siemens booth. Thank you, and we'll see everyone soon. Bye-bye.